starting our brave space. We're going to be present, ask that you be open, and ask that you engage in a way that makes you feel brave, whether that's typing through the chat or whether that is unmuting and sharing out. We really want this to be a collaborative space. And I always have to remind myself to be present and open, especially after a Monday, especially when the weather is beautiful. And, just remind myself that I'm here for an hour to learn whatever I can take out of this session and share it with my fellow colleagues. So I just ask that you do the same. As we work through today, we're going to do a little bit of a warm up, and then we will hear from some amazing teachers that are using arts integration in their classrooms. So I just wanted to remind us what the definition of arts integration is. It is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through one or more art forms. Students engage in a creative process that connects art forms and other subject areas and meets evolving objectives in each. So the key thing to really remember is that the art form or the content area is not in service of the other. They are both equally the same in the standards we're teaching, in the understanding that we're getting, in the evaluation process we're doing. So we are treating both equitably and allowing for our students to learn in a new and creative space. We have some exciting news to share. The first is that Lindenwood is providing the opportunity for you to earn graduate credits through their PACE graduate PD program. If this is something you are interested in learning more about, please reach out to Cynthia. I've put her email up there for you to contact her. You can also find information about this on our website, so definitely scope it out. You can earn credits by participating in our live PDs, all of the different ones we offer through Missouri Alliance, but you can also go back and watch different ones we've recorded and posted on our website. And so it's kind of like a self-paced thing in that aspect, which is really nice for all of you that are working hard out there. As always, I can provide a continuing ed certificate for your time with us. So if that is something you need for your school, please send me an email and I can get that for you. And lastly, Desi is having a conference coming up soon. I'm going to put the website in the chat for you. But they are participating in a 2-day civics and patriotism for the humanities lessons across the curriculum conference. That is going to be February 27th and 28th. Registration is free and lodging is provided for 2 nights plus food. So it's kind of a good gig. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, please check the link there. All right, now we get to warm up our brains and get into the fun stuff here. Let me just make sure there's nobody else waiting to join. All right. We are going to start our warm up with something called the complexity scale. I did this particular lesson with a group of 5th graders, and it was very powerful for both them and myself. And this is one of those strategies that once I did it, arts integration for kids, there's always an aha moment for them. But also as the teacher, you have aha moments when you're doing it. And this was one of those activities that was an aha moment for me. And we're going to get to go through it. And I hope you kind of have a similar experience or takeaway from it. But basically what we're going to do is we are going to actively listen to a poem. And then I'm going to give you a few phrases from that poem, and you are going to rank them on this scale of most important to least important. So simple to complex. And then you're going to tell us why you did it. So because of our recent inauguration, I was drawn back to this powerful poem, and did this with a group of fifth graders at the time that it happened. So I thought for now, we're just going to take a few moments. You can doodle as you're listening. You can jot down keywords or phrases that stand out to you, whatever helps support your learning, but just go ahead and take in this poem called The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
All right. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to think about some of those things, and you're going to rank them from what you believe was the least important thing that she said in that quote and the most important thing. Um, so when I did this with the fifth graders, we did it in a virtual space. So the kids were able to drag and drop them, and we viewed them on the screen. But what I'm going to have you do for right now is, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, just kind of draw a line, and just draw the shapes along that continuum as they match your thinking and your feeling. So I'm going to give you a few quiet moments to just kind of read through the different quotes that I picked, and then let you go ahead and place them from what you believe to be the least important to the most important. Would anybody like to share out either what they picked as their least important or what they picked as their most important quote?
Well, my most important on there is the yellow triangle. So we close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside.
Thanks, Christy. And why was that? What about that made you feel connected to it, or feel like that was the most important?
Well, honestly, I think like just my personal philosophy as, the extremes around me, teaching high school or politics or anything in life, like I feel like I'm always in between. Everybody like trying to be the peacemaker and letting people see that, we have so many things in common. And one of my quotes that's on my board right now in my high school classroom is, it's not our differences that divide us, it's our judgments about each other that do.
Hmm.
So that way of thinking just resonates with me.
Thanks for sharing. Would anybody else like to share?
I'll go. The green is what is resonating most important for me tonight. And I think it's because I have been feeling very challenged with our current climate and a little bit overwhelmed. And the close companions are about light, the orange and the blue.
Mm-hmm.
So gave me some hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching that live and just feeling like, I think I cried. She, did it the first time, and I was like, oh, like we're gonna have an inauguration. So I was like, I'm gonna pull this lesson out, and then I listened to it again, and yeah, it has a different feel to it. That is called the Continuum of Learning, and that is a Project Zero artful thinking strategy. And what I would like to do next is pass it off. We've got some great educators that are on the call with us today to share with us their what they're doing in their classroom to show arts integration. We have a variety of different age levels, teachers, all of those things. So with us tonight is Cassie Carnahan, who is okay, she switched it. At first it was under my name, and I'm under Cynthia's name, so we're all confused here on Zoom tonight. We have Christy Ponder with us tonight, and Mary Kate Samoyak. And so I'm going to start with Cassie. We'll just kind of go in this order of our panelists. And they were invited to just take a few moments to share in a way that makes them feel safe and comfortable. So I will stop sharing and pass it off to Cassie.
Hello. I apologize. I missed the first part of this trying to get my link corrected. So thank you for helping me get that done. My understanding is that you did a Project Zero thinking strategy with the poem. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I teach elementary students. I spend a portion of my day working with our gifted student population and a portion of my day teaching music. So I'm excited to talk about the crossovers that I see in arts integration, because to me, that's just a natural connection that we have in the process of creativity and just synthesizing the deepest levels of understanding of anything that we're engaging with. I have been on this journey for a year and a half. And I have been doing primarily most of this work with my students in my gifted population, because in music we're already doing the arts. So I have found especially helpful a lot of things for sensory integration and behavior regulation through tools like the Actors Toolbox. And my students really, really love to get up and move and engage with the things that they're learning. And Tableau has been a really exciting part of forming that process of explaining their understanding in ways that are not just paper and pencil, which we can get stuck in so easily. Oh goodness. The things we've done beyond those include a lot of sketchnoting. Garrett Brown did a really great session, has a really great session on like the scientific thinking of things and demonstrating that in like the style of comics. And so I've got a lot of really talented artists in my groups that would much rather draw their understanding than write it out. So we've also played around with some animation. Those are things that we've used in my classroom. So I'm going to pause because I've been talking a lot.
Yes, it's my turn next. So I'm Christy Ponder. I currently teach high school, but I've taught middle school, I've taught college. I taught for the Missouri Goodwill Center, teaching adults working towards a high school diploma. And I've also been an elementary instructional coach. And I also work in Missouri Alliance as an arts across the curriculum specialist. So this has been kind of a funny journey, because when I hated art in high school so much, and I like actually got suspended for skipping my high school art class because I didn't understand why we were doing these things. Like, why am I replicating a comic book script? Like, I didn't understand. So I ended up going to art school and found myself in teaching. But when I was writing my first curriculum, and I'm like, the arts are really a way to understand everything around us. Because the artifacts or the music or the plays or the stories or whatever that any given time period or culture creates tells us about those people. It tells us about what was important to them. It tells us about their civilization, just about everything that you can learn from a culture or a civilization historically or modernly. So I started integrating early on, like thinking about what standards or what topics could I integrate in my visual arts class that would support learning in other classes. And then I started sharing out from there and did a study just looking at me in a freshman art class and the freshman social studies teacher collaborated to create an integrated curriculum, and just to see how that deepened the understanding of the kids, based on a variety of different standards in both our content areas. So from there, I've just been really working with other teachers, trying to figure out how we can assess both content standards equitably, and how we can deepen their understanding. I mean, something as simple as reading a passage, and I did this recently with one of the English teachers, and having the kids choose a line from it and then illustrate it. So, and it could be any passage. It doesn't matter what they're reading, but anything. And yeah, so I just kind of keep my eyes and ears open for those people I work with who are willing to kind of try something a little different, or, really just want to push their kids a little bit deeper than what they were doing before. And that's it for me for now.
Awesome. Well, I'm Mary Kate Simoniak. I will apologize for the tippy tappery nails in the background. My dogs are out, and if I lock them out, they'll bark. So I teach 6th and 7th grade, and I taught a little bit of 8th grade science. I am 2 years into this journey of using arts integration. I am now the department chair for my school. Sorry, it's okay. And I have been working with Missouri Arts Alliance for bringing arts integration into the classroom with my team. And I've seen a lot of students who normally wouldn't engage just getting excited about learning. Today we're actually working with Rachel right now at my school. And today I had a teacher, we were reflecting on how time went with Rachel coming into our classroom. And he is a first semester teaching teacher, and he's learning how to engage his students and able to use theater and improv in a way. And he said, I saw my class of like 20 kids who maybe he gets 2 or 3 to participate in the day, with 90% of them were involved in the instruction. And he was amazed and he was excited. And so I believe in the work because of that. Personally, in my classroom, I use kind of a mixture of things. I have comics that I do with the kiddos, blurred so you can't really see them, but from the greenhouse effect to air pressure, or how different types of precipitation form, like they can craft a story out of it and show their creativity. So some of my kids really love that. Others really love getting up and modeling. We're in our space unit right now. And so we did the solar system the other day with Rachel. I also had them physically standing up and working together to create a moving dance to show the relationship between the sun, earth, and moon. And they had to show me how they all interacted. Some of them used their hands and were showing the orbit and the rotation around the axis. And they were able to elaborate using these big words that are really hard for some students who maybe they can't read it very well, but seeing a physical demonstration of it ties it into their brain. Which I work in a Title I school, high poverty, high needs, but I'm also in a cool space where we do have a gifted program. So I teach gifted students half of the day, and then I teach students I had a class with 10 IEPs and 3 504s and 3 ELLs. So I see a crazy variety, and every single student, even if they didn't know the English language, has been able to engage in some form or fashion, because pictures for those ELL students, I've learned so much from my EL students just by them drawing and seeing that they're understanding a concept. And I get more smiles from them on the day-to-day now, because when we moved from the beginning of the year worksheets to physically getting up and moving. I have one who stopped by my room and just waved. She doesn't speak much English yet, but she waved and she was excited to see me, because we're doing things like this in the classroom. So I can't say there's one thing that I sit in, because I think you need to switch it up with sixth graders and with middle schoolers. They get bored, and I do use the actor's toolbox a little bit, and I use a lot of what the acting right has talked about, of that strong language. Hey, are you making a strong choice right now? Because it also teaches behavior. And a lot of my students, they don't get that behavior need met at home. That's not all the ways the case, but in allowing you to bring the arts into the classroom, you're also bringing in that social emotional learning at the same time. And I find so much value in it. And so if you would have told me 2-3 years ago that I would be doing dancing and art in a science classroom, I'd look at you sideways and say, how on earth are you going to make that happen? But it works. It works. And I even did my master's degree on arts integration, because we're hitting a higher depth of knowledge. We're not sitting in the recall. We're not sitting in multiple choice answers. We're elaborating, we're creating, we're analyzing. And that's why I fell so much in love with arts integration work, is because we're seeing thinking at a higher level for literally every single student. My building also does an intervention hour where we get to group our kids based on content area where they're struggling. And I could push out worksheets, I could push out and make it another prep, bunch of articles, which those are important at times. But I've been able to, hey, can you guys make a model of this? Can you do a comic related to climate change and indicators that are causing it? And it's just been amazing to see, like, hey, they might be struggling, but bringing arts in allows them to truly think through the process, show that they're understanding it in more in depth than just a multiple choice test that we have to give. So if I sound a little preachy, I'm sorry, but that's honestly where I've been at. And I've been loving this process so much. And it's not every day. It's really not. It's not every day, but it's every week for me at this point. And it's trying something new. Does every class love every strategy? No, but you figure out what class likes what strategy. There's not a lot of, we're getting more secondary people into arts integration in this state is what I'm recognizing. But when I first started last year, I just heard a lot of elementary stuff. But as I'm doing the work, I'm seeing other people in my building also get into it. So I'm excited to see the outcomes of the work that we're doing at Reed. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. There's so many powerful things that you guys just said that like reiterate why I love this work. And you know, I want to open it up to the floor. If anybody has questions or follow-up for the teachers, and you know, sometimes it's about the nitty-gritty, like, you know, how do you do this? Like, who helps you? Who supports you? Who starts the conversation? Is your principal on board? Is they, you know, so if anybody has any of those kind of questions to just help support your journey, this is a chance for you to share out now.
Well, I don't have necessarily a question. I just wanted to share that our superintendent was the one that decided that we were going to be an arts integrated school district. And when he did that in 2017, you know, many teachers, including myself and some other specialists, went to all these symposiums for arts integration. So we've been doing this for about 7 years. And so the fact that we've now incorporated it into every grade level at a higher level each year, you do see the benefits. And the thing that is special about elementary, because you have the kids coming in kindergarten and you do a PBL and then you do this arts integration unit, and then they do something the next year and the next year and the next year. And they're just so comfortable doing all these different literacies and examples of utilizing the arts, whether it's puppetry. We've done puppetry. We've done a lot of what I would call, well, drama tableau, of course, but music and movement, dance, and all that. I just think that they just then have no inhibitions. And when you start in kindergarten, that's the best time. And so over time, by the time they're in fifth grade, they're like, "What do you want me to do? I'll do whatever." And so for me, being a music specialist, then when I'm ready to do a musical, they're like, we've done all this, since kindergarten. It's not a problem. And then guess who gets all the leads in middle school? Those kids, because they've had all this experience. So it's just kind of like a double whammy for arts integration, that not only are going to utilize it to learn the material, but then you get so comfortable and confident, and then those kids go into middle school and they're like, nobody else is confident. I'm going to just go for it. And it's thrilling to see that kind of thing happen. So there's a whole bunch of layers to it, but it's neat to see over the years that, like I said, test scores and teachers and interactivity and engagement is just so much stronger. So I can't get enough. It's so good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, hearing all the excitement from each of you, like it sounds to me like you are all like strong teacher leaders in this work at your school. Something I have come across is the hesitation with starting. Like we're all kind of like having that aha moment of like, once we got started, this is why we do it, because we see the benefit of it. We see the growth in our children. We see that students who couldn't participate and communicate in the conversation before are finding ways to do that. So do you guys have any tips or strategies for how to invite somebody who's maybe a little hesitant to dip their toe in? Like how would you bring them into that conversation?
Well, one of the things that I just did with a couple English teachers, I actually wrote this lesson dealing with analyzing imagery in like ninth grade ELA, and I sent it to all of the ninth grade ELA teachers, just like how to integrate. It's like, hey, if you guys want to try this out, just let me know. And I've had like 3 of them kind of approach me. They're like, oh my gosh, this is cool. Like, how would you do this? And so we've been working on getting them implementing it. Another thing I did in the past before was really displaying the student work out in the halls, because sometimes you'll get a teacher that's like, how did you get them to do that? Or why are you doing that in an art class? Like, why are you analyzing cause and effect relationships in a drawing class? Like, what does that have to do with drawing? And so it opens up that conversation once you get that stuff and that work out in the halls. I think helps a lot.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Thanks.
Honestly, my secret was just inviting my team along. We went to the Springfield Arts Council conference probably 2-3 years back when we heard that we were becoming a fine and performing arts program. And it was kind of like, are you going to drink the Kool-Aid? And some of us were sipping on it, others drank the full gallon, and inviting even like the younger teachers in. So we have a lot of practicum and student teachers coming in, showing them those strategies and crafting it as a culture more so. Another thing I do is like, I always invite my admin in and my other teacher friends, like who maybe you're just wondering, how do you manage your classroom? What does that look like? So being open to allowing people to watch you do and practice, I think is huge. And it takes being brave and vulnerable, because it doesn't always go the way that you want it to. And you're like, oh, wait, that's not what I meant. But that's where we pivot, and, we're thinking on our feet as teachers all the time. And then even I am a curriculum writer for my district, so I just sneak it in there too. I put, hey, stand up, model these things. Here's a comic, and I put an example in there. So just slowly inviting. It's not like it's required for every teacher to do, but it puts it out there, and it leaves the message of, hey, there's other ways to teach this instead of just a textbook. So yeah.
Very cool.
I could add to that in addition to getting the teachers and the administrators on board, I almost feel like when the teachers and administrators see, kind of like you were saying, student work in the hallway, but when the students speak for themselves and say, hey, I'd really like to show how I understand this by doing this, by acting it out, by drawing this image, by making a mind map, or making a stop motion animation, or something that shows that I understand this, but in a slightly different way than my peers are showing that. And is that okay? And when teachers are opening up to that, I know that they're looking for more of those modes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to hear about the variety of student engagement. And I when they are able to speak for themselves on their excitement for learning, I think that is a way to really, get people to drink the whole gallon of Kool-Aid with us, and let their work speak for themselves. I think Melanie Rick, and I don't want to misquote her at all, but I feel like one of the very first conferences I went to in DC, I saw her, and we were talking about like the picture perfect artwork in the hallways versus the evolution and the nitty gritty and the dirty work of arts integration, and how like that process is so much more involved than just copying and pasting and gluing and then hanging up something beautiful in the hallway. So it's really great to hear that, the work is speaking for itself, and you guys are out there encouraging your colleagues and your peers. That's why I really valued this space, to be able to come together with people from all over the state that, I'm not going to have the opportunity to go co-teach alongside, but to be able to come together and share, our excitement and our joy. And it kind of revamps you as an educator that, like, yes, this is good for my students and myself, even though it can be tricky sometimes and it can be messy and hard and complicated. But with that, I'm going to give a little plug, because I think a lot of teachers on here are teacher leaders with the Kansas City, Missouri partnership. So if you are not, and that is something you're interested in, or if you know some educators that would like to learn more, obviously we encourage you to invite them to our free virtual PDs here as one opportunity. But that is another great opportunity to go to symposiums, to get some hands-on learning, and then find other, teacher leaders that are supporting the state and doing the work. One thing that Christy said that stuck with me is like, why am I doing this? Which kind of leads perfectly into kind of a closing reflection activity that I'd love us to do. We've been doing it at every session. So if you have been with us from the beginning, we've just kind of been working through this and evolving with all the different parts of our series. But this reflection tool is called the 3 Whys. So I'm going to give you a couple moments of just quiet thinking time to think about, why might this conversation we're having tonight, why might this matter to me? Why might it matter to people around me? And why might this matter to the world? So go ahead. These are big, thoughtful questions, but in the realm of being an educator today, doing this work, why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to the people around you? And why does it matter to the world? Just take a couple quiet moments to think, jot down some ideas, and then we'll share out. Would anybody like to share out any of their responses to one of these prompts?
I can go. One of the overarching, I guess, would be for the world, but also those around you. Working with arts integration, it teaches that collaboration and creativity are still important, especially in a world where we're going more and more towards a lot of AI doing the work for us. Not that it's a bad thing. I think it's a great resource and tool, but it just reminds people to interact with one another and think about the human that they are capable of being, in connecting with the arts and connecting with the curriculum that they're being taught. And I've seen students who don't normally communicate or talk with one another almost be, yes, kind of forced to work with one another with some of the strategies we used, but then they end up smiling and laughing and enjoying one another in the work. So I would say that's my why, because it creates a more collaborative environment where people are welcome and willing and able to take risks. And we don't see that very often. So it's just going to build a better society.
And I think for me, the why might this matter to people around me? Because I think about my students, and I've gotten everything from when I first started doing this to why are we doing English in an art class, or why are we learning about history in an art class, or whatever. And I'm always telling them, like, you get out in the real world, and this content area does not exist in a vacuum. Like, there's people that have to write reports about scientific experiments that they're doing, or there's pretty much everything that we do in our jobs, in any job, is not just one content area. So by the end of the semester, it's wonderful for them to see the fluidity in their education and understanding that life doesn't exist in these content area silos. So they can kind of navigate between those spaces. Again, I teach high school, so it's a little bit, I'm hoping like once they're out in the world, they're taking this knowledge into their jobs too and into their lives, essentially.
Thank you.
I like the fact that we have done presentations about why all this is important and it matters. And I think the three main things are that we've said over and over again, and at least in our school district, is empower creativity, equip students, and engage communities. And that's by producing authentic work and showcasing their learning. We're identifying, proposing, and defending solutions to real world issues, which is project-based learning also, and then work independently in teams to accomplish a goal, and that's that engagement piece. So it's all about becoming better humans, in the long run. And I just think that's a good summative way to present it.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to add something personal. You guys are great big picture thinkers, by the way. I think the arts for me, I started with music ed and then added gifted onto it. But I think the arts for me were where it was okay to be vulnerable and creative. And I was a shy kid and I was a perfectionist kid, and I am kind of the same as an adult, honestly. But I feel like the arts provide that space where it's okay to make mistakes and do some like rapid learning and working through those things and working through a lot of mistakes in a creative process where you're maybe not being graded at some levels, or just working in a space where you're just learning to work with others. But that's not, there's no checklist or checkpoint to that so much as just kind of a playful approach to learning. And that really opened me up as a person. And I think that it does the same for so many others.
That's great, thank you. Yeah, I think kind of what I'm hearing, and I love hearing all the different age ranges of students that you all work with on this call. I personally teach preschool, so we are all the way, across the board. And yeah, I love hearing and seeing that it is moving, not only from our 3 and 4 year olds, but all the way up through our adult selves and how we're connecting and relating to this and learning through this. And, you know, I talked with a lot of middle school and high school teachers for a long time about how, you know, elementary ed looks a certain way, and then it immediately shifts and changes. They learn hands-on and they do all these things, and then they go to middle school and it stops. And so it's really encouraging for me to hear that we're in a space where that type of learning doesn't stop, and that our students are getting what they need, all the way through self-reflecting as adults in this space, and why it matters. So thank you guys for being vulnerable and sharing your thoughts with us. We're gonna go ahead and start wrapping things up. I'm gonna drop a link to a survey in the chat. I would love any feedback, suggestions, comments, that just kind of help us build up our learning space here. We would love to open this, we would love to have more participants joining us. So whether it is, you know, a timing issue, we would love to hear that. If it's a day of the week issue, we would love to hear that. If it's content, we would love to learn more about what you're looking for in this space and how we can support you as educators moving forward. Our next session is going to be hearing from pre-service teachers who are about to join the field, and their thinking and learning on arts integration and how they're going to start their career. We are still looking for some panelists to join us. So if you know of any pre-service teachers, or work with any, in a college space that are kind of in this realm of learning this and taking a risk and jumping in, please send me an email. I would love to connect with them. And otherwise, we are all finished. I thank you guys so much for spending your night with me and joining in on our learning.